Human beings have a touching, almost naive faith in signed paperwork. It gives us peace of mind. We pay thousands of dollars to men in tailored suits and leather briefcases to draw up solemn documents filled with archaic legalese and embossed gold notary seals. We truly believe a last will and testament is an invincible shield, a final, absolute command that the world must obey the moment our heart stops beating. What a beautiful, tragic fantasy. I'm Arthur Vance. I've spent decades watching the invisible gears of money, power, and bureaucracy grind away, and if I've learned anything, it's this. The system does not care about your good intentions. Picture the scene. You've worked for 50 years. You've endured mediocre bosses, economic crashes, and freezing early mornings just to build a nest egg. You have a pristine, ironclad will locked in a fireproof safe under your bed. You've told your kids exactly where you keep the key. You drift off to sleep one night with the satisfaction of a job well done, believing your family is completely protected. But the next morning, your heart stops. Your children, eyes swollen with tears and the crushing weight of grief on their shoulders, walk into your bank. They stand before the plexiglass window. They slide your notarized will across the counter. Do you know what the teller does? They don't even bother reading it. They slide it right back through the slot. That will, the document you paid a fortune for, the one you pinned your family's future on, means absolutely nothing to the bank. At that exact microsecond, the teller's computer screen is looking for one specific contractual designation. If those few letters aren't registered in the system, the accounts are frozen instantly. The branch manager locks the vault. Your money no longer belongs to your family. It belongs to the insatiable jaws of the probate court. Your will wasn't a shield. It was an open invitation to a long, gut-wrenching lawsuit. To understand how we fell into this collective trap, we have to look backward. Every absurd system has a logical origin that time eventually corrupted. In the late 1960s, the American financial landscape looked entirely different than it does today. The average middle-class citizen kept their savings in a paper passbook tucked inside a kitchen drawer. Massive family wealth was rare among regular working folks. People held a few $100s in savings to cover funeral costs and settle minor debts with the local grocer. It was in this context, on August 15, 1969, that the National Conference of Commissioners on Uniform State Laws finalized the Uniform Probate Code. The probate court system was originally designed for exactly that world, to process small, slow, predictable transfers of wealth over many months. The judges took their time because time cost very little and the balances were marginal. But the world shifted at breakneck speed. Paper turned into bits. Inflation transformed the numbers and investment options multiplied. Yet, the legal system froze in time. Today, a retiring senior often sells a primary residence they've owned for 30 years and places the entire lump sum directly into a high-yield savings account. We aren't talking about a few $100 anymore. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yet, state probate laws are still dragging their feet in the last century. In many states, the legal threshold for a small estate affidavit, which allows a quick asset transfer, is stuck at ridiculously low numbers like $50,000 or $100,000. If your bank balance exceeds that arbitrary number, the court demands absolute jurisdiction over your life savings. A judge takes control, the state demands its cut, the attorneys rub their hands together, and your family is left waiting in the wings of bureaucracy. This delay isn't just an inconvenience, it destroys families. Let's step away from theory and look at how the system bites into real flesh. Let's talk about Dorothy. Dorothy wasn't a hedge fund tycoon or a venture capitalist. She was a retired third-grade school teacher living in Naperville, Illinois. Back in 1988, Dorothy and her husband, Eugene, bought a modest 3-bedroom split-level house for about $142,000. It was a simple home with oak cabinets and a small yard. They lived a quiet, careful life, paid their taxes on time, and minded their own business. When Eugene passed away after a brutal battle with pancreatic cancer, Dorothy was left alone. A few years later, her knees could no longer handle the stairs. She decided to sell the house. The real estate market had soared, and the sale brought in $415,000. With the cash in hand, Dorothy did what any sensible person of her generation would do. She walked into her local Chase branch and opened a standard savings account with $350,000. She wanted to do everything strictly by the book. She paid a local estate attorney $800 to draft a comprehensive last will and testament. The document stated with absolute clarity that all her worldly possessions would be split evenly between her son, Michael, in Seattle, and her daughter, Sarah, in Austin. Dorothy signed it, 2 witnesses signed it, and the notary stamped it. She locked the paper in a steel box under her bed, called Michael, and said, "Don't worry, honey, I've handled everything." On a Tuesday morning in November, Dorothy suffered a massive stroke in her kitchen. She died before the ambulance even reached the hospital. Michael and Sarah booked emergency flights immediately, putting the last-minute tickets on their credit cards. They met with the funeral director, who handed them an invoice for $11,500. Michael wasn't worried. He knew his mother had $350,000 sitting at Chase. He took the death certificate, the notarized will, and went straight to the branch on Washington Street. He sat across from the branch manager and slid the documents across the desk. The manager looked at the screen, then he looked at the will. With a mechanical, rehearsed look of sympathy, he slid the documents right back to Michael. He explained that Dorothy had never signed a payable on death form because the account balance exceeded the Illinois small estate limit of $100,000. The bank possessed zero legal authority to release a single dime. Dorothy's will meant absolutely nothing to Chase. A will is not an order to a bank teller. It is merely a letter of instructions directed to a probate judge. The bank froze the entire $350,000. Michael and Sarah walked out into the cold with empty hands and an $11,000 funeral bill they had to pay out of their own pockets. Dorothy thought she had handled everything, but she completely missed the rigid contractual rules of the banking system. This is where we need to get analytical. Most people make the exact same mistake Dorothy did because they believe the most destructive myth in American personal finance, that a last will and testament bypasses probate. It is the exact opposite. A will guarantees probate. A will is the literal key that unlocks the courthouse door because it forces your heirs to file a lawsuit to prove to a judge that the document is valid, that it wasn't forged, and that no creditors are being cheated. Banks do not care about wills, they care about contracts. When you open a bank account, you sign a signature card that establishes a private contract with that institution. If you die, that contract terminates instantly unless you specifically named a beneficiary directly on the account documents. If you didn't, the money legally becomes the property of your estate. And an estate is a legal ghost. It has no hands to sign, no voice to speak. It requires a living human being to petition a judge for the legal right to speak on its behalf. There is a tool, an open secret that the bureaucracy never bothers to advertise because it doesn't generate court fees or lawyer bills. It's called the POD form, or Payable on Death Designation. In some states, it's called a Transfer on Death account. This single piece of paper is a binding private contract between you and the bank. And in the legal hierarchy, a specific bank contract completely supersedes a will, supersedes a trust, and bypasses the probate court entirely. The concept isn't new. It dates back to a 1904 New York court decision known as the Matter of Totten, where the court established that a person could hold money in trust for another without creating a costly, formal legal structure. Banks call this a Totten trust or a POD account. If Dorothy had spent 5 minutes filling out that one-page form, the bank would have handed Michael a cashier's check for the entire balance within 20 minutes of him presenting her death certificate. No judges, no waiting, no middlemen. The system preys on ignorance. The probate process is a meat grinder, designed to skim a percentage off the top of your life's work before it ever reaches your kids. Let's look at the exact numbers on Dorothy's estate. Because Chase froze the account, Michael had no choice but to hire a probate attorney in DuPage County. The court system does not operate for free. First, Michael had to pay the initial filing fee for the petition for letters of office, almost $400. Next, Illinois law requires the estate to publish a notice to unknown creditors in a local newspaper for 3 consecutive weeks. The cost to run that legal ad in the Daily Herald, $250. Then, the judge required Michael to post an executor bond to ensure he wouldn't steal the money, costing another $1,000 in insurance premiums. And those are just the bureaucratic appetizers. The main course is the attorney's fees. In many states, probate lawyers are allowed to charge a statutory percentage of the gross estate or an hourly rate that quickly reaches the exact same number. For an estate of Dorothy's size, a standard fee sits at 3%. The attorney took $10,500 just for filing boilerplate paperwork. To top it all off, the court required a full inventory of the estate and imposed a mandatory 6-month waiting period just in case a credit card company or medical provider materialized to claim a debt. The court held the money hostage for a total of 14 months. When you add up the filing fee, the publication fee, the bond, and the attorney's cut, the family lost over $12,000 in pure cash. But the true cost isn't just measured in dollars. They lost 14 months of their lives dealing with court dockets, missing work, and paying 22% interest on the credit cards they used to bury their mother while they waited for a judge to release her money. The money was sitting there the entire time, but a single missing piece of paper kept it locked away. Let's change one single variable in this timeline. Let's go back to the day Dorothy opened her account. Imagine that after signing the standard signature card, Dorothy looks at the teller and says, "I'd like to fill out a payable on death beneficiary form, please." The teller prints out a single sheet of paper. Dorothy writes down Michael's full legal name, his social security number, and his date of birth. She does the same for Sarah. She assigns them each 50% of the account and signs the bottom. That single signature alters the entire trajectory of her family. Flash forward. Dorothy passes away. Michael and Sarah walk into the exact same Washington Street branch. Michael hands the teller the death certificate. The teller looks at the screen, sees the POD designation, and at that exact microsecond, the legal contract triggers. Under FDIC regulations, specifically 12 CFR Part 330, the bank no longer recognizes Dorothy's estate as the owner of the funds. It recognizes Michael and Sarah as the sole, absolute owners. The teller prints out 2 cashier's checks. The bank charges a grand total of $0 for the transfer. The probate court gets nothing, no newspapers print costly public notices, and no attorney takes a 5-figure cut. The waiting period drops from 14 months to 48 hours. The siblings pay the funeral director in cash and go back to their homes to mourn their mother in peace. That is the difference between order and absolute chaos. The danger isn't limited to savings accounts. Negligence and false assumptions create other traps where everyday citizens are brought to their knees. The first is the safe deposit box. Many seniors rent a heavy steel safe deposit box at their local branch. Inside, they store the deed to the house, the physical will, birth certificates, and their mother's heirloom jewelry. They hand a spare key to their oldest child, believing the key grants access. It grants absolutely nothing. The moment the bank learns of your death, federal regulations require them to seal that safe deposit box immediately. Your child can hold the key in their hand, but the branch manager will deny them entry. To open a sealed box, your family has to petition the probate court for a specialized order just to retrieve the will. It's a Kafkaesque nightmare. You need the will to open the probate case, but the will is locked inside a box that you can only open with a probate order. You avoid this entirely by adding your child as a joint renter on the safe deposit box contract, signing the document together at the branch while you are alive. The second trap is the mistake of joint tenancy on bank accounts. Seniors frequently add their adult child's name directly to their checking account as a co-owner, thinking it's a shortcut so the child can pay bills if the parent gets sick. This is an absolute legal disaster. The moment you add your child as a joint owner, the law views that money as their personal asset. If your child gets into a car accident and gets sued, the plaintiff can seize your bank account. If your child goes through a bitter divorce, their spouse can demand half of your savings in the settlement. If your child falls behind on taxes, the IRS can levy your bank account to pay their debt. The POD form prevents all of this. It grants your child 0 ownership rights while you are alive. Your money remains completely protected from their creditors. The transfer only triggers the exact second your heart stops. Do not put your kids on your checking account. Use a POD form. The third trap is naming minor children or grandchildren without designating a custodian under the Uniform Transfers to Minors Act, UTMA. If you name an 8-year-old directly on a POD form, the bank will still freeze the money until a court appoints a legal guardian to manage it, dragging you right back into the probate nightmare. The system thrives on your inertia. It counts on you watching this, feeling a brief moment of concern, and then sinking right back into your daily routine, telling yourself you'll handle it next month. But time is a non-renewable resource, and the universe doesn't give warnings. That is why I am demanding you take 4 concrete actions this week. Step 1, the filing cabinet audit. Go to your kitchen tonight, pull out your most recent bank statements, and look at the top right corner where your name appears. Look for specific acronyms: POD, payable on death, TOD, transfer on death, or ATF as trustee for. If you only see your lonely name floating there, your account is exposed and unprotected. Step 2, the face-to-face visit. Drive to your bank branch. Do not use the drive-through. Walk inside, sit down with a banker, and demand the payable on death beneficiary designation form. It is your contractual right. They are required to provide it to you upon request, completely free of charge. Step 3, precise data entry. The bank will not accept vague terms. You cannot write "my kids" or "my wife." You must provide the full legal name, the current residential address, the date of birth, and the social security number for every single beneficiary. Bring this information written down with absolute precision. Without it, the bank can delay the payout indefinitely, citing identity verification issues. Step 4, contractual maintenance. Life is dynamic. People get married, they get divorced, they drift apart, or they pass away unexpectedly. If your primary beneficiary dies and you fail to update the POD form, the contract fails and the money reverts straight to probate. Always name contingent or successor beneficiaries who step into the slot if the first person passes away. Review these forms every 3 years to ensure no clerical errors have occurred in the bank's system. At the end of the day, money is just stored energy, time out of your life that you transformed into stability for the people you love. Allowing that energy to be drained by bureaucrats and litigators because of a missing signature is a completely preventable tragedy. The financial system stopped caring about common decency a long time ago. Today, it answers only to the rigid code of written contracts. When you sign that single sheet of paper, you strip the court of its power, you eliminate the lawyer's percentage, and you guarantee that the fruit of your labor stays exactly where it belongs, inside your bloodline. Look at your statements tonight. Don't let inertia decide the fate of everything you spent a lifetime building. In our next session, we will examine the look-back periods for nursing home asset recovery and the specific trust structures that the state cannot pierce. I'm Arthur Vance. Take care of your family while you still hold the pen. Disclaimer, this material is for educational and analytical purposes only and does not constitute formal legal or financial advice.